The lasagna was burning in the oven. I didn't move. I just sat at the edge of the bed, holding the remote in one hand, not even pressing the buttons, just holding it. The house smelled like overcooked cheese and something else I couldn't place. Something bitter. She walked in, finally. Heels clacked against the wood floor. Her perfume floated in a second after her, not the one I bought her last Christmas, the other one. The one I didn't recognize. She walked right past the smoke coming from the oven, past my jacket still wet from the rain, past me. She didn't say a word. She didn't even flinch when the smoke alarm went off. She took out her phone, tapped it twice, giggled, and disappeared into the bathroom like none of this was happening. I sat there, blinking. Not even a glance. Not a single glance. I got up, turned off the oven, tossed the lasagna in the trash with shaking hands, and opened the windows. She stayed in the bathroom for 26 minutes. I counted. When she came out, she had a towel wrapped around her hair and a smirk on her face, still looking at her phone. She sat on the couch, legs curled under her like it was just another Thursday night. And I swear to you, I don't think she even noticed the smell of burnt food or the open windows. That's when it clicked. This wasn't forgetfulness. This wasn't a rough week. This was her showing me what I was now. Invisible. Background noise. And yet, I still asked her, like a fool, "Did you eat already?" She didn't answer. Didn't even look up. So the next morning, I did something so unlike me that I questioned whether I was dreaming. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I simply opened her phone while she slept. And what I found in the hidden album made my fingers go numb. Her passcode hadn't changed. It was still my birthday. That little detail burned worse than anything else. She trusted me enough to leave it the same, or maybe she didn't even care anymore. Maybe she knew I wouldn't dare check. But that night, something in me cracked open. I slid her phone from under the pillow. She was still breathing soft, and even, her face turned away. I moved like a thief in my own bed. My fingers trembled as I opened her photos and scrolled. Nothing obvious. A few selfies, screenshots, shopping lists. Then I saw it. A tiny folder buried at the bottom of her album's list. Labeled receipts. My chest tightened. She doesn't keep receipts. I tapped it open, and at first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. It wasn't receipts. It wasn't even screenshots of purchases or returns. It was photos, blurry, dimly lit, taken in hotel mirrors, car windows, restaurant bathrooms. Her. And him. One of them was taken in our garage. I recognized the old oil stain on the floor. My body went cold. There were videos too. Short ones. Muffled laughs. His voice. Her voice. Her other voice. The one she used to use with me when we were still new. I paused one at the 9-second mark. She was wearing the hoodie I thought she'd lost months ago. My hoodie. I don't know how long I stared at that screen. Time stopped. There were no more thoughts, no angry monologue, no plan forming. Just a buzzing in my ears and the distant realization that I could hear birds chirping outside. Dawn. I put the phone back. Sat at the kitchen table for 3 hours. I didn't cry. Not yet. But I did make coffee. 2 mugs. Hers just how she likes it. Though I knew now it meant nothing. Mine stayed untouched. When she finally walked in around 8:15, yawning and scratching her shoulder, I didn't even look up. I just said, "Your photos aren't hidden very well." She froze, then blinked. And when she opened her mouth to speak, I raised one hand, not to silence her, but to show her the envelope sitting in the middle of the table. Inside were 4 things: a printed photo from her folder, a copy of the garage camera timestamp, a key, and a note. A note that said, "You get the house. I'll take my dignity." She didn't cry. She didn't scream. But her hands shook when she picked up the envelope. And that's when I knew, for the first time in years, I finally had her attention. By the time she read the note, I was already gone. I didn't slam the door. I didn't leave a dramatic message or post cryptic quotes online. I just walked out at sunrise, suitcase in hand, my old backpack slung over one shoulder like a college kid who'd overstayed his welcome. No destination. Just away. I sat in my car for almost 20 minutes before I even started the engine. My fingers were still buzzing from adrenaline, or maybe fear. I expected her to chase me out, maybe yell, cry, explain something stupid like, it didn't mean anything. But the door never opened. No footsteps. No shouting. Just silence behind me. And that told me everything I needed to know. I drove around town aimlessly at first. Ended up parked in front of the high school where we first met. It was surreal, like time had folded in on itself. The bleachers were still rusted. The vending machine still jammed. I remember sitting on that field during lunch breaks, legs tangled with hers, dreaming about places we'd run away to. Paris, Montana, anywhere but here. I checked my phone at 9:14 a.m. for missed calls. By 9:30, it was 11. By noon, it was 15. Each voicemail more frantic than the last. The first one was calm. "Daryl, we need to talk." The next sounded annoyed. "Don't play games." Then a pause. A longer message. Shaky voice. "I know what you saw, but it's not what you think." Classic. Predictable. She didn't even bother to delete the folder. That's what got me. She never expected me to look, because I'd been invisible for so long that I'd practically disappeared. And she liked it that way. At 12:47, she sent a text. Just one line. "Where are you?" No apology. No confession. No emotion. Just 3 empty words that felt more like a trap than concern. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the keyboard. I wanted to write something brutal, something she'd never forget. But instead, I replied with one word. "Nowhere," and turned off my phone. I booked the cheapest room at a roadside motel just outside the city. I paid in cash. The room smelled like mildew and regret, but the sheets were clean, and, for the first time in weeks, I could hear my own thoughts without her voice drowning them out. That night, I stood in front of the mirror above the motel sink and looked at myself. Really looked. Puffy eyes, patchy stubble, shoulders that hadn't been straight in months. And I asked myself a question I hadn't dared to face before. How long have I been gone, even before I left? And then I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I smiled. Because for the first time in our marriage, I finally realized I wasn't the fool for staying. She was the fool for thinking I always would. The motel walls were paper thin. I could hear the guy in the next room arguing with someone over speakerphone about child support. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to feel lucky or miserable. Maybe both. The motel TV played a loop of late-night infomercials and dusty reruns of sitcoms that used to make me laugh when things were simpler, when life still felt like mine. I didn't sleep much that night. Instead, I lay on the stiff mattress with the glow of the parking lot light pouring in through the cheap curtains, thinking about how easily I'd let my identity fade. I used to write. I used to hike. I used to have opinions about things. Now, I could barely recognize myself. Somewhere in between her silent dinners and cold shoulders, I had just evaporated. The next morning, I turned my phone back on. 32 missed calls. 6 voicemails. 12 texts. The first few messages were sharp, clipped. "Seriously? Grow up, Daryl." Then, "You're overreacting. This is insane." A couple more hours later, her tone shifted. "Can we just talk, please?" Then finally, "I'm sorry. I messed up. I miss you." That last one hit differently. Not because I believed it, but because I could feel the panic in her now, the realization setting in, the quiet, desperate unraveling of someone who had always assumed she had the upper hand. And now that I was gone, even if just down the road in a room that smelled like bleach and loneliness, she didn't know what to do. At 1:26 p.m., she sent a photo. It was of the lasagna I'd thrown out 2 nights earlier. She'd pulled it from the trash, reheated it, and taken a bite, burnt edges and all. The caption read, "Still the best thing you've ever made." It was so stupid, so transparent, that I laughed. Out loud. Alone. It was the kind of fake sentiment you'd expect in a rom-com, except there wasn't going to be a happy soundtrack playing behind it. She didn't love me. She loved the convenience of me. I was the insurance policy, the predictable furniture in her life, the guy who kept the lights on and listened to her vent about work, the guy who still knew how she liked her coffee and folded her towels the way she liked, even though she never once said thank you. But now, the furniture had legs, and it had walked away. I thought I'd feel worse. I thought I'd crumble, maybe run back at the first sign of warmth. But instead, as I sipped bad motel coffee from a paper cup and watched her send message after message into the void, I realized something liberating. She was finally feeling the weight of my silence, and I had no intention of breaking it. Not yet. It had been 3 days since I left, and the motel room had started to feel oddly comfortable. Not cozy, not homey, but simple, honest. There were no pretenses in that room. No silent treatment. No passive-aggressive glances over the dinner table. No phantom perfume lingering in hallways when I knew she hadn't hugged me in weeks. Just a bed, a lamp, and me. By the morning of the fourth day, she had stopped calling. But the texts continued. They went from manipulative to pleading to poetic. I keep hearing your keys at the door. Please, just come back. I made the coffee the way you like it today, and it's cold now. Just like everything. It was like she was trying on different masks, hoping one would make me forget the hidden folder on her phone. The lies. The long silences before the betrayal even had a name. That day, I visited my brother, Nate. We weren't close. Life had happened to both of us in opposite directions, but he had a garage with tools, and I needed to keep my hands busy. We sanded old wood. I didn't ask what it was for. I just needed the noise, the sawdust, the distraction, and then it hit me. She thought I was broken, that I'd come crawling back once I cooled off, too exhausted to stay angry, that I'd sleep in my car for a few nights, maybe cry into my jacket, then come home and pretend none of it happened. So I gave her something she couldn't ignore. At 7:13 p.m., I took a photo of myself standing in front of my childhood home. The house had been abandoned for years, paint peeling, porch rotted, mailbox gone. But it was still ours, still full of ghosts and memories and fights over cereal and Christmases where we pretended we had enough. I sent it to her with one caption. This is where I remembered who I was. No context, no explanation, just that. I turned my phone off immediately after. 10 minutes later, I heard a car outside the motel window. I peeked through the curtain. It was her. She was standing under the flickering parking lot light, holding her phone, frantically looking at every door number like she was trying to guess which room I was in. Her hair was a mess. No makeup. Slippers. She looked human. For the first time in years, I saw panic in her eyes. She wasn't scared of losing me. She was scared of losing control. I didn't go out. I just watched. Eventually, she got back in her car, slammed the door, screamed into the steering wheel, and drove off. And in that moment, something in me hardened. Not out of vengeance, but because I finally understood the truth. She wasn't sorry. She was scared, and I was done being the one afraid. After she sped off from the motel, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel like I'd won. I just felt hollow. The kind of hollow that comes when you've been screaming underwater for too long and finally stop trying to reach the surface. I collapsed on the bed, still fully dressed, and stared at the ceiling for what must have been hours. I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I just listened to the hum of the old air conditioner, the creak of pipes behind the walls, the echo of a life that wasn't mine anymore. At exactly 12:03 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something, instinct, dread, curiosity, made me swipe. I didn't speak first. Daryl? The voice whispered. It was Harper, her sister. She and Audra had always been close in the way sisters are. Passive-aggressive at holidays, ride or die in public, and brutally honest behind closed doors. Harper never interfered in our marriage, but I always got the sense she saw more than she let on. I don't want to get in the middle, she began. But I need to tell you something. Because I think you deserve to know the whole picture. I sat up. She hesitated, then blurted it out. He wasn't the first. The silence in the room thickened instantly. My breath caught somewhere between my lungs and throat. I couldn't speak. Harper continued, her voice low and filled with guilt. She's been doing this since before the pandemic. Different guys. She hides it well. Sometimes she deletes things, sometimes she doesn't bother. I told her once it would catch up to her. I told her not to marry you if she still had one foot outside the door. Why are you telling me this now? I finally croaked out. Because I saw the photo you sent her, she said. And I realized she broke something in you she can't fix. And maybe if you know it all, you'll finally stop trying to fix her. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Then Harper added something that chilled me deeper than anything else that week. She told me last month she doesn't even feel bad about it anymore. Said you'd never leave. That you don't have it in you. She hung up before I could say anything else. I sat there for a long time, her words playing on loop in my head like a cruel lullaby. I remembered the nights Audra came home late, claiming she'd stayed at work to help with budget reports. I remembered the sudden new lingerie that I never saw again after it was delivered. I remembered the vacations she took to clear her mind. All of it. Every second I spent wondering if I was the problem, if I wasn't enough. And in one short call, the truth carved itself into my spine like a knife. It was never about me being enough. It was about her never being full. I got out of bed, pulled my journal from the backpack, and started writing. Not to her. Not for revenge. But for me, a record, a reclaiming, a way to turn all the chaos she dumped into me into something real. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing for sure. I'd never step foot in that house again. And the next time she knocked on a door looking for me, it wouldn't open. 3 days passed. No more calls. No more texts. Just silence. The kind of silence that used to drive me insane, but now felt oddly peaceful. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for her voice, not for her guilt, not for a miracle apology that would never come. I was done playing the background character in the story of my own life. I found a small cabin 2 hours north, an off-season rental, cheap, isolated, surrounded by pine trees and fog that rolled in like something from an old horror movie. It was perfect. No Wi-Fi, no cell reception, just enough electricity to boil coffee and charge my notebook. I needed that space, not to recover, but to remember. By the 5th day, I started getting messages again, not from Audra this time, but from people we knew, mutual friends, her coworkers, even her cousin, who I hadn't spoken to since our wedding. The texts all had the same tone, confused, careful, concerned. Hey man, heard you're going through something. Audra says you're having a breakdown. Want to talk? She told me you left after an argument, that she's worried about you. There it was. She was rewriting the narrative, not just to save face, but to make me the villain in a story I never wanted to be part of. According to her, I'd stormed out after accusing her of cheating after months of paranoia. She was trying to make it work, and I refused counseling. She even told someone I'd been depressed and possibly unstable. Classic. I didn't respond to any of them. I didn't need to defend myself anymore. Let her spin whatever fiction helped her sleep at night. The truth wasn't for them. It was for me. And for the version of myself I was finally starting to recognize again. But then she crossed a line. She showed up at my parents' house. I hadn't even told them the full story yet, just that we were taking space. They thought I was being dramatic. Said relationships go through hard seasons. That Audra was just tired or under pressure. But when she knocked on their door with tears in her eyes and a trembling voice, they let her in. Of course they did. She sat at my mother's table and told them she was scared for me, that I was lost, that I'd cut her off without warning. She cried, real tears, the kind I used to pray she'd shed whenever I tried to tell her I felt invisible. My mom called me that night, voice gentle, hesitant. Daryl, sweetheart, are you okay? She's worried. She says you won't talk to anyone. I hung up, not out of anger, but because I realized I wasn't just walking away from a wife. I was walking away from a world that had always asked me to make myself smaller so others could feel bigger. That night, I opened a new document on my laptop and typed 3 words. This is mine. Then I began writing the real story, not for revenge, but so that one day, when someone else tries to rewrite my history for their comfort, I'll have my truth carved in stone. Because the worst betrayal isn't when they cheat on you. It's when they try to erase you after. And I wasn't going to let her. The cabin gave me clarity I didn't expect. Mornings were cold and quiet. I'd wake to birds tapping at the windows, brew a cup of bitter coffee, and sit on the creaky porch wrapped in a blanket that smelled like pine. I wrote every day. Not about her, not anymore. About me. About the years I gave away. About the parts of myself I'd abandoned for comfort, for routine, for someone who never truly saw me. And slowly, page by page, I came back to life. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want her to suffer. I wanted freedom. Real, internal, soul-deep freedom. The kind that comes not from punishing the person who hurt you, but from no longer needing anything from them at all. One morning, as fog rolled off the hills and the first sunlight cracked through the treetops, I got a message from Harper again. Just one line. She's not handling it well, but maybe that's what she needed. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need to know if Audra was spiraling or healing. That was her journey. And for the first time in forever, it wasn't my job to carry it. A week later, I returned to town. Not to the house. I'd already signed it over to her. Not out of generosity, but because I didn't want to be chained to bricks and memories. I rented a small place on the edge of town. 1 bedroom. Big window. No ghosts. I got a job at a local bookstore. Part-time. Low stress. I started going on hikes again, started journaling, even joined a community writing group. I was the quiet one in the back, always listening. And then one night, I read a story aloud. Not the story, but one inspired by it. They clapped. Not politely, genuinely. That night, I cried for the first time. Not out of sadness. Out of relief. A month passed. Then two. The text from Audra slowed, then stopped. No apologies. No explanations. Just silence. The good kind. The kind that finally made space for something new. And then, one late afternoon, as I locked up the bookstore, a woman walked in just as I was flipping the sign. She apologized for being late, asked if I had any recommendations for something hopeful, but not cheesy. I smiled, handed her a copy of The Midnight Library. She smiled back. And in that moment, simple, honest, unplanned, I felt it. Something warm. Something real. Hope. Not the desperate kind you cling to when everything's falling apart. The quiet kind. The kind you grow, day by day, once you've finally decided to stop watering dead things. And maybe, just maybe, that was the best revenge of all.